Maybe you're spending Valentine's Day alone. Maybe you just got home from the worst Tinder date ever. Maybe you got dumped on Valentine's Day. Well, chin up, because I have brutality, dismemberment, the most savage Valentine's Day card ever sent, and we're gonna wrap this whole thing up with the most methed up, third grade educated, cousin humping, food stamp selling, frog gigging, hold my beer saying, kid rock crazy that you have ever heard.
Wow, when you break it down.
I'm bleeding to death. My ex-boyfriend just stabbed me to death.
In 2007, a 25-year-old Connecticut woman, Tiana Notice, met James Carter Jr. on MySpace. That wasn't that unusual back in those days. I wonder whatever happened to Tom. Has anybody checked in on him? And Tiana, fresh out of a long-term relationship, wanted to try dating again. So she went ahead and she met up with James for a date. He painted this picture of being a successful homeowner, a finance manager, and even had expressed a desire for future kiddos. It was everything that Tiana was looking for. But lies. All lies. To demonstrate his affection for Tiana, he had gifted her a phone under his plan and even graciously bought her new tires for her car. Now, at the time, Tiana thought that was just simple acts of kindness. That is love bombing, and it is never good. And they were an odd match. Tiana being beautiful and smart, and James not. So fast forward a year, and the relationship is crumbling like a stale cookie. And in a surprising turn of events, James took a trip to the Plainville Police Department in January of 2009 to file a restraining order against Tiana. Now, curiously, he had no visible injuries or any proof of harassment, but the police decided to file their report anyway. A few days later, Tiana filed a restraining order of her own. This time, James was banned from engaging in any form of communication with her for 2 weeks. How generous. And now here it gets weird. Tiana soon found herself on the receiving end of some lovely emails from a mysterious Jessica Banderas. Now, she claimed to be James's ex-girlfriend. Now, mind you, these emails were not some friendly, hey girl, what's up? No. They were nasty, they were threatening, and downright unpleasant. So Tiana promptly reported this harassment to the police on January 13th, 2009. Their response? Unless she could provide concrete proof that James was behind it all, they simply couldn't be bothered. How comforting. Now, I mean, I get it. There's no proof that these emails were actually from James, and I'm sure that the cops get this kind of stuff all the time. However, it's not like the police didn't have a history with this couple. And it's weird. These emails are a fairly obvious red flag that the cops just chose to dismiss. Let's hope they weren't detectives. And so the saga continues. James filed yet another restraining order against Tiana. This time, the court summoned both parties to present their sides of the story. And Tiana came prepared. She was armed with the printed copies of those infamous emails. James, on the other hand, he had nothing. He had nothing to support his claims of Tiana's alleged harassment. As a result, both of them were slapped with 6-month restraining orders against each other. Now listen, never accept that. Do not ever agree to just stay away from each other. If you've done nothing wrong and you have some wild bandicoot harassing you, get that restraining order. If a judge asks you, will you just agree to stay away from each other? You say, no, it's fairly obvious I want nothing to do with this person, and if they come near me, I want them arrested. Because they are psycho and I am not. So not really feeling the sting of that mutual restraining order, in January of 2009, James decides to pay a visit to the police station and claim that Tiana had sent him a flyer with her picture and all of her personal information on it. The police did raise an eyebrow at that curious accusation, but they decided to investigate anyway. Again, just in case. And this really speaks more to James than the police, but how is that threatening? I mean, it's a flyer. And I guess the police should take a look, because if it really happened, it really was a violation of a restraining order. But that's all James could come up with? A flyer? Okay, I guess. Of course, Tiana denied any involvement in the flyer fiasco, and by February 2009, their relationship had turned to ashes. It was completely over. Deader than fried chicken. No, we are never, ever, ever getting back together. Done. And Tiana had moved on to greener pastures anyway. She had gotten back together with her ex-boyfriend, Robert. They were even planning to get hitched. Love is a fickle thing. Now, according to Tiana's friends and family, she had already informed James about her reunion with Robert several weeks prior, and that's when things took a turn for the worse. James cranked up the harassment dial like a bad DJ at a wedding reception from hell. On February 7th, all 4 of Tiana's tires were slashed, leaving her with that sinking feeling that James was behind it. She had no concrete proof, though, to support her suspicions, so she had her dad Alvin install a security system at her apartment. So fast forward to February 13th, the day before Tiana's murder, she receives a flurry of phone calls from none other than James himself. This time, she had a witness, a coworker. Sensing real danger, she dialed up the Plainville police, but they directed her to call the Waterbury police because apparently that's the town she worked in. Shut up! Take the report. But undeterred, Tiana made her way to the Waterbury police station after work. She was hoping for some much-needed support, but the Waterbury police seemed to have a hard time believing that the restraining order was legit. They went so far as to straight up tell her, oh, that's fake. Could you imagine? Could you imagine that after everything that she's been through? Fake. So they told her to have Plainville fax over a copy. Now, is this bureaucracy, laziness, misogyny? We don't know. Finally, Tiana returned home that evening only to find a note from James, pleading for her to take him back. The note says, quote, Tiana, forgive me. I never cheated on you. If I'm lying, may God take my life. Forgive me for everything else I have done. Okay, sure. Armed with what she believed to be the irrefutable evidence needed to finally get this flapjack behind bars and to leave her the hell alone. So on February 14th, 2009, Tiana headed over to the Plainville police station, armed with the restraining order and the note from James. Now you would think this would be a straightforward case, right? Wrong. The police, in their infinite wisdom, decided to give James a friendly heads up about Tiana's visit. Because why not? Let's just tip off the lunatic. I don't see a problem there. That should have been enough. That note should have been enough for them to go out and pick up James. And instead, they call him. Is there really that much going on in Plainview, Connecticut? Cops arrest people. That's what they do. They don't call them. With a false sense of security provided by the police, Tiana went home thinking she could grab some laundry and head over to her mother's house for the weekend, but that isn't how things worked out. At 9:41 p.m., screams pierced the night as she made a desperate call to 911.
I'm bleeding to death.
Where are you?
I'm bleeding to death.
Stay on the phone with me.
My ex-boyfriend just stabbed me to death.
Who's there with you? Who's there with you?
You're not gonna die. You're not gonna die.
I stay on the phone with me.
She cried out, I'm bleeding to death. My ex-boyfriend stabbed me to death. She did have a neighbor there with her, and the neighbor had also witnessed James' car leaving the scene, adding another layer to the damning evidence. Now, James, being the genius and model citizen he is, decided to go on the run. However, he couldn't resist sharing what he had been up to with his brother, sibling bonding over murder. Tiana was rushed to the hospital, but tragically, her injuries were too severe. She had been stabbed 20 times, and she had bled to death. A devastating end to a tumultuous journey. And now, because James Carter Jr. sucks at absolutely everything, he was caught less than an hour after the murder. When James' trial began in October of 2011, the evidence was as mountainous as his lack of moral compass. Surveillance footage from Tiana's dad's security system had caught a lot of the act. Tiana could be seen running away, and on the 911 call, she identified him as her killer. Then, of course, his own brother and girlfriend testified that he had confessed to the crime that very night. He had a girlfriend? And he confessed to her. No wonder he was caught in less than an hour. Move on, James. Jesus. In the end, James was finally held accountable for his despicable actions, and society was spared from his presence for 6 decades, which is the maximum punishment allowed in Connecticut for murder. It's a small consolation for the loss of such a vibrant life. Adding to the tragedy, in the week leading up to Tiana's murder, she had filed over 30 complaints to the police. 30. And what did they do? Absolutely nothing. It's almost impressive how they managed to ignore her pleas for help with such precision and apathy. After what had to feel like a century of bumbling and fumbling, the Waterbury and Plainville Police Department finally faced the music, and they were found negligent in Tiana's death. Tiana's family were awarded a $10 million settlement, but I'm sure they'd rather have Tiana. Tiana's family channeled their frustration into something productive and started the Tiana ANGELIQUE Notice Foundation. They're on a mission to toughen up domestic violence laws, and they deserve so much respect for doing so. They still care about their community, and they're doing what they can to hold police accountable and help prevent a similar tragedy. In 1971, Jesse McBain and Patricia Mann attended a Valentine's Day dance in North Carolina. Unfortunately, the night of love and celebration took a horrifying turn. Their bodies were discovered tied to a tree on February 25th, 1971, revealing that they had been strangled and subjected to torture. The killer cruelly tightened and released the rope around their necks just to prolong the suffering. I mean, this was bad. He would choke them out to the point of unconsciousness, and then when they revived, he would just do it all over again until they finally passed away. Sadly, the police had initially brushed off their disappearance, thinking that the young couple either had eloped or ran away. It wasn't until later that an investigation was launched, but sadly, it led to no significant leads. The case was further complicated because it took place in multiple jurisdictions, so multiple police departments were involved, and of course, there was a lack of cooperation between them. I mean, geez, you're solving a brutal murder. No one cares about your ego. So to this day, the Valentine's Day killings remain unsolved. The murderer responsible for the death of Jesse McBain and Patricia Mann has never been caught, and that leaves their families and their loved ones without justice. And this is really sad. This case is just so old and so cold. I don't think they will ever get justice. And the way they passed, oh my God, strangulation is quite painful. And this goblin put them through that fear, that torture, and that pain over and over and over again. I don't think that this was their first murder. Hopefully, they've been locked up on other charges or maybe hit by a Mack truck.
I wake up, I can smell blood, and I wake up to being terrified.
Oscar Pistorius, the man who went from inspiring Paralympic to convicted murderer. What a journey. With his amputated legs, he defied the odds, and he competed against able-bodied athletes, even making it to the 2012 London Olympics. And that's impressive. But then, on a fateful Valentine's Day in 2013, everything went downhill like a car with no brakes on a dirt road. Pistorius decided to fire a few shots through a locked bathroom door, and unfortunately, his girlfriend, the intelligent and oh so beautiful Reeva Steenkamp, ended up dead. Now, during the trial, the prosecution argued that it was all premeditated, pointing to previous domestic disputes and evidence suggesting that Pistorius intentionally killed her after an argument. But Pistorius had a different story. He claimed it was all a tragic accident, mistaking Reeva Steenkamp for an intruder. The trial was a media circus. Everyone had their eyes glued to that courtroom waiting for the verdict. South Africans loved this guy. I mean, loved. And I get why they would. In South Africa, a major crime like this, there's no jury. They only have a judge and what they call assessors. An assessor basically just helps the judge. Pistorius' trial, he had 2 assessors. Now, they believe that that makes for a more fair and impartial trial. But when Thukuzile Masipia is the judge, that goes straight out the window. She found him not guilty of murder, instead found him guilty of culpable homicide, which is South Africa's version of manslaughter. Then she sentenced him to 5 years. So I'm guessing that she bought his, no, there was an intruder there, sitting on my toilet, defense. The prosecution can appeal in South Africa, so they did, and they won. He was convicted of murder, but Judge Thukuzile Masipia resentenced him to just 6 years, which doesn't even follow South African law for a conviction of murder. In November 2017, the Supreme Court of Appeals increased Pistorius' sentence to 13 years and 5 months. They had stated that the initial sentence had been way too lenient, and they were right. In my opinion, Pistorius is just a spoiled, entitled, rich kid douche. He had also been accused of shooting a gun out of a car sunroof and then firing a gun at a restaurant. The sunroof debacle happened in mid to late 2012. He was a passenger in his friend's car, and his friend got pulled over by the police. Apparently, they disclosed that Pistorius had a weapon on him, so the police officer wanted to see it. And that apparently set Pistorius off into some epic tizzy, because later, as they were driving down the road, Pistorius just starts firing his gun out of the car sunroof. Now then, the restaurant incident happened 1 month before he killed Reeva. He was at a crowded restaurant with the same friend in Johannesburg. He asked that friend to pass him his friend's gun. I don't know why. Then he fired the gun, and he hit his friend in the toe. I mean, he just grazed his toe, but there was still blood. And that guy, after that happened, Pistorius was still able to convince his friend to take the blame for it. Jeez, that friend needs some self-esteem. Why is he letting Pistorius treat him like that? It kind of gives you the idea that maybe Pistorius treats everyone like that. Pistorius was paroled in January of 2024. Apparently, he's got some strict parole conditions, but he's still fairly young. He's going to be peg-legging it all over Pretoria, South Africa with his guns. So good luck and stay safe, South Africa. Reeva Steenkamp's parents were vehemently opposed to any early release of Pistorius. But her mother, June, did not attend the hearing in November of 2023. She said she just didn't have the energy to face Pistorius again. But she did have an eloquent statement prepared that she had an attorney deliver. Her husband, Barry, had passed away in September of 2023, of which June said was a broken heart. A few hours later, it was announced that Pistorius would be paroled. What an insufferable jackal. In Colorado Springs in 1985, we have a twice-divorced Cassandra Randle, who was a 37-year-old office worker and supermom to 12-year-old Dietrich Sturm and 10-year-old Melanie Sturm. Albeit twice divorced, Cassandra was ready to get back up on that horse and dip her toe into the dating pool again. She put not one, but 2 personal ads in the local newspaper. Which isn't as weird as it sounds. That's what you had to do pre-Plenty of Fish. Now, Cassandra was sizzling, and she received a whopping 85 responses, and about 12 of these fine suitors met up with her for a date. I mean, she's doing the most. I guess she really wanted a date for Valentine's. Unfortunately, love did not work out for Cassandra or her children. On Valentine's Day, Cassandra's ex-husband, David Peltzer, discovered the bodies of Cassandra, Dietrich, and Melanie while he was dropping by with a Valentine's Day gift. I hope that gift came with a side of therapy. The scene was horrific. Cassandra went first, and her children had to be horrified. I can't even imagine. They were all beaten and strangled, and Cassandra and 10-year-old Melanie were both essayed. Now fast forward to today, and the case remains unsolved. Colorado Springs Police Department considers it their one and only unsolved triple murder. And to make this case even more traumatic to detectives, there's 2 innocent children involved. It's a mystery that continues to haunt them forever. And this is just incredibly sad to me. There's nothing wrong with being proactive with your dating life when you're a single woman. And while we don't know if it was anyone she met through her personal ads, it just kind of makes sense that it was. This case absolutely deserves a deeper dive, and Cassandra and Dietrich and Melanie and all of their loved ones deserve justice.
My wife, I think my wife is dead.
Sir, please, sir.
53-year-old Dr. John Hamilton was a trusted and respected gynecologist and abortion provider in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. In 2001, he had been married to his wife, Susan, for 14 years. The mild-mannered doctor adored Susan. Expensive gifts, extravagant vacations. He even gifted her a Porsche on their wedding day. Talk about setting the bar high. The couple lived in a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood in Oklahoma City. 2 days a week, Susan would manage Dr. Hamilton's abortion clinic. Now, right in the middle of the Bible Belt, this could kind of be a little bit of a risky job. Pro-life protesters were constantly curbside, making their presence known. But Susan was a very strong and opinionated woman, and she had no problems letting those opinions be known. She was like, what? I don't care. Conflict with some members of the community appeared to bring the couple closer together. On Valentine's Day 2001, Dr. Hamilton left his home early that morning because he had some scheduled surgeries. But first, he wanted to exchange Valentine's Day cards with the wifey. That's sweet. Then he outed $5,000 to start his busy day at the hospital. However, he did find time that morning to order his wife a beautiful and expensive bouquet of orchids. But she wouldn't live to see them. Coming home between surgeries after 8:30 a.m., the doctor was quickly paged by the hospital to return ASAP as his next patient was already under sedation. After that surgery, which went well and as expected, at about 10:45 a.m., Doc returned home again. It was then that Dr. Hamilton found his beloved Susan dead on the bathroom floor with 2 neckties tied around her neck and her skull fractured. Well, that took a dark turn. Dr. Hamilton placed a 911 emergency call, and soon responders were on their way.
911. Please, please send an ambulance, please.
What's the problem?
My wife, I think my wife is dead.
Sir?
Please, listen, I'm a doctor. I've been trying CPR. Please send somebody, quick.
Is she not breathing?
No, she's not breathing. I don't get pulse, please.
Okay.
Hurry.
You're doing CPR on her?
Yes, I'm trying. Yeah, I'm going to hang up so I can continue,
All right.
please.
We'll be right there.
Okay.
Initially, it looked like the anti-abortion protesters, a group calling themselves the Army of God, had followed up on their threats. Susan had been receiving constant death threats from the group, and the group also made up a wanted for murder poster for Dr. Hamilton. And listen, I know everyone's got their opinions, but maybe there's a better way of expressing it. At the police station, Dr. Hamilton was losing it. But at the scene, things were not quite matching up with the grief-stricken doctor's behavior. Valentine's cards from Susan were found on the kitchen counter. In one card, Susan wrote, quote, "I bought my cards 2 weeks ago, so they don't seem as appropriate now. I love you. Have a good day." Have a good day. Yikes. The other card wasn't much better. It said, quote, "Obviously, I bought this before last Monday." What's that about? What happened last Monday? Well, I'll tell you. Susan had found some very compelling evidence that Dr. Hamilton was having an affair. And not only just having an affair, but having an affair with one of his patients who just so happened to be a dancer at the local gentleman's club. It's classic. Go on and live your dirty old man stereotype. Then, a local reporter from news station KWTV got to listening to the 911 call, and she thought it sounded strange. Something was just off about it. So she sent a copy of the recording of the 911 call to a company that specializes in computer voice analysis. Experts there thought there wasn't enough stress in the doctor's voice considering the circumstances. So they determined he had actually been rehearsing the 911 call. And now this is not absolute proof, and it's nothing they can use in court, but it does give a little insight that maybe there's something more to the doctor's story. Already suspicious, the cops took a second look at how Dr. Hamilton behaved at the police station the day of the murder. He was absolutely putting on a show, sobbing, begging for help. I mean, so smooth. Things are getting hot for Dr. Hamilton, but they're about to get hotter. The trial kicks off, and here comes crime scene investigator Tom Bevel. He is Oklahoma City's very own blood spatter expert, and he's got some tea to spill. Bevel drops the bomb that the blood spatter on Doc's shirt lines up perfectly with him being the one that strangled and bashed his helpless wife's head in until her brains were literally exposed. Oh my God. They had found blood up in his sleeve, and that couldn't happen. The way the spatter looked inside his sleeve, there was some velocity to it. He wouldn't have those spatters if he had just been performing CPR. So Hamilton's story of just stumbling across his wife's body and his valiant effort to save her life was beginning to fall apart. I mean, he was literally caught red-handed. Investigators also found Susan's blood and actual bits of flesh in the doctor's car. Turns out he's not the smartest person in the room. Police had also found some of Susan's jewelry hidden in an underwear drawer, almost as if someone was trying to set it up to look like a botched robbery. All of that, plus the whispers of an affair and the rumors that Susan was planning a divorce. I mean, those Valentine's Day cards. You know Doc had to be pissed. He had probably been thinking of everything he had done for Susan over the course of their marriage, forgot about the fact that he had an affair, and her cold words and rejection, they were just too much for the poor little man. It didn't take long for the jury to find the doctor guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He he remains behind bars at the R.B. Dick Connor Correctional Center in Hammond, Oklahoma. Adios, Duck. Enjoy the pokey. 41-year-old West Palm Beach, Florida man Gibson Paul found himself getting dumped on February 14th, 2011. So, as you do, he grabbed his gun and opened fire at the car his live-in girlfriend, Tamika Peterson, was trying to enter to leave with friends. I hate this guy. I do. He went all out, shot her 5 times. He even managed to injure another individual in the car. The driver, another woman, and a 3-year-old girl managed to survive, thankfully. Unfortunately, Tamika did not. After the shooting, this charming man hightailed it to Tennessee. But he didn't last long. Soon the cops caught up to him and they arrested him on the Florida charges. He got convicted of first-degree murder, aggravated assault, shooting into an occupied vehicle, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. No plea deal for that dude. The judge threw the book at him and sentenced him to life in prison plus 25 years. Right now, he's chilling at the Liberty Correctional Institution, hopefully regretting the decisions that led him to this point. Hopefully. But maybe with life plus 25, he'll have some time for some self-introspection and maybe to learn a thing or two about how to not be a total scumbag. He shot at a car, killing his girlfriend, while a 3-year-old girl was right there. Thankfully, she survived, but what kind of trauma is she carrying around? You are a twat, Gibson Paul.
He's been what? He's been shot! He's dead!
It was supposed to be a romantic rendezvous with his wife. But on Valentine's Day in 2010, when Richard Scheck drove to the remote Belton Bridge Park in Lula, Georgia, supposedly to meet up and exchange presents with his wife, he met a bloody end instead. Richard was shot 5 times, including 2 gunshots right to the face. This little rendezvous was actually a trap set by his wife, Stacy Shea, to lure her poor husband to his demise. Now, Richard was shot by a hitman who charged $10,000 to do the deed. His name was Reggie Coleman, and he was a personal trainer who went by the name Mr. Results. Indeed. Now, the family and the police had been suspicious of Stacy from the get-go, but it took police a solid 3 months to arrest her and her 2 accomplices. Stacy wasted no time admitting that she was cheating on Richard, who was her 5th husband. 5th, seriously, 5th. With a coworker named Juan Reyes.
I've been having an affair for several, 6-7 months.
But she wasn't so keen to admit she had hired Mr. Results to off her husband. I don't blame her. That's embarrassing and horrible. Her accomplice was Lenitra Ross, who was a work buddy, and she conveniently played the middleman in this whole game. She kindly put Stacy in touch with Mr. Results. The Hall County Sheriff's Office really went all out on this case. They were digging through phone records that showed extensive communication between the 3 suspects, Ross, Scheck, and Mr. Results. Mr. Results. Dork. To save her own skin, Stacy agreed to testify against Ross and Results, or Coleman, which really seems weird to me because her being the mastermind, I'm surprised that other 2 didn't flip first, but whatever, they all suck. Now, Ross, being the stand-up person that she is, she never took responsibility for her part in this murder. She got slapped with a life in prison without parole sentence anyway. Coleman, on the other hand, he pleaded guilty and he got the same punishment. And our girl Stacy, she got what she deserved. She pleaded guilty and got slapped with a sentence of life in prison without parole. A trio of murders, all locked up for good. In the aftermath of this tragic event, the community really rallied together to support Richard Scheck's family. They organized fundraisers, they held vigils, they offered their condolences. Richard was just a fun guy. He was so loved. He roller skated. He was a hot air balloon enthusiast. Honestly, Stacy didn't deserve him. It's nice to see how people can come together and show support and kindness for each other after a horrible, horrible thing. And Richard's memory lives on with his family and his friends. They remember him as the loving and caring, as well as quirky and fun individual that he was. And Juan Reyes, the guy that Stacy was having this affair with, who she shot her husband for, he has to be like, what the hell? He dodged a bullet. He dodged 5 bullets. This one's a lot. It's a lot. I remember this story and blessedly forgot about it. When I was doing my research, I came across it again and then threw my phone against the wall and shouted, no. Then I had to go jab rusty nails into my eyeballs. Let's see if you have a stronger stomach than I do. Amanda Michelle Naylor McLure had been raised in an adoptive family. But after becoming an adult, she decided to reconnect with her biological father, Larry McLure, and her sister, Anna Chowdhury. In 2019, Amanda and her boyfriend, John McGuire, left their Indiana home to go live with Larry and Anna, her sister, in West Virginia. So far, so sweet, right? Well, maybe no. See, Larry had just gotten out of prison for SAing a child between the ages of 6 and 12. How in the world did he get out of prison? Because we know he was neither remorseful nor rehabilitated. Having been in West Virginia for about 10 days, Amanda and dear old dad began an intimate relationship. I mean, Amanda was an adult, so I guess you would call this consensual, but that word really sticks in my throat because this woman had trauma. I don't know what her life was like before she was adopted. I don't know what her adoptive family was like, but her bio dad had some kind of psychological hold over her and just poured his poison and his sickness, amongst other things, right into her. Now, Larry, he saw Amanda's boyfriend, John McGuire, as competition. So within those 10 days, a murder plot was hatched, along with the manipulation and the psychological stranglehold. Drugs absolutely had to have fueled this frenzy of cruelty. Of course, it can't all be drugs, and you have to wonder exactly what Larry's proclivities, aside from enjoying intimate relationships with his 2 daughters and not liking too many roosters in the hen house, what they were. Because on Valentine's Day 2019, what started with a wine bottle to the head ended after 2 days of torture for McGuire, leading to his death. He was strangled. They injected him with meth. I mean, Larry really had to be working something out because this was awful. Then they buried this poor man out in the backyard. And for whatever reason, probably more meth, 6 days later, they exhumed him, dismembered him, and buried him again. That's who they decided to parole. Yeah, he's ready to be integrated back into society, clearly. Now hold on to your Carhartts and your Marlboro Reds, because that ain't all. 3 weeks after the murder, blood-related daddy and daughter got married. And because love really doesn't conquer all, justice eventually caught up to them, and Mrs. Daddy got a 40-year prison sentence. Her sister/niece, Anna, also received a 40-year prison sentence. Mr. Daddy received a life without mercy sentence. Actually, he deserves neither a life or mercy. There is nothing quite like being in love. But sometimes love can be twisted and manipulated. There are the dangers of unchecked emotions and the lengths that people will go to for their own selfish gain. So, as we reflect on these dark tales, let's remember to cherish the people that we love and to never take them for granted. Always choose empathy, kindness, and respect in our relationships. And most importantly, let these stories be a testament to the power of love and the strength of the human spirit to overcome the most unimaginable circumstances. Remember, be cool to yourself and be cool to others. Hold on to your sweetie tight, but love them enough to know if and when it's done, it's done. Because I do care about what happens to you. Bye.
Wow, when you break it down.